Vrulon stood knee-deep in the rubble of a city that once gleamed with life. Now it was nothing more than ash and fire. Plasma shots echoed in the distance, distant screams blending with the dull roar of collapsing building. The heat from a nearby explosion scorched his armored skin, but Vrulon barely flinched. He scanned the horizon where human fighter jets sliced through the sky like predators. He should have felt anger, but instead all he felt was a growing sense of emptiness. Why are we fighting them? Vrulon had been taught to hate humans from the moment he enlisted in the Zir'thak military. They were painted as ruthless savages, a plague that spread across the galaxy, devouring everything in their path. His commanders spoke of humans as though they were nothing more than mindless beasts, deserving of annihilation. But as Vrulon stood amidst the ruins of Zir'thak, staring at the aftermath of another glorious victory, he couldn't shake the unsettling thought that had begun gnawing at him after every battle. Was this victory? He could still smell the charred remains of Zir'thak civilians mixed with those of human soldiers. The battlefield was a mass grave. Friends, enemies, innocents all turned to dust. And for what? His grip on the plasma rifle tightened, knuckles turning white. Somewhere, deep in the chaos of his mind, a new question started to form, a question that made his heart pound in a way the heat out of battle never had. Were the humans really the monsters here? 2 years ago, at the beginning of the war. The holographic briefing room buzzed with energy. Commander Zir'thak stood tall, his voice booming as he addressed the Zir'thak soldiers, his eyes gleaming with righteous fire. These humans are nothing more than scavengers, pirates that threaten the peace and prosperity of our great empire. They encroach on our borders, steal our resources, and defy our might. His fist slammed against the hullable, causing the display of earth to flicker. Vrulon had stood attention, believing every word. They were told this war was just, that humanity was a threat to the very existence of the Zir'thak. There had been no doubt in his mind back then. Lieutenant Vrulon. Zir'thak's voice had boomed through the room, pulling him from his thoughts. When we reach Earth, you will lead the charge. You'll show these humans what it means to face the might of the Zir'thak. Vrulon had nodded, his chest swelling with pride. But now, with the blood of innocence staining his boots, that pride had turned to something cold and foreign. Doubt. In the present. Vrulon was yanked from his thoughts by a transmission crackling in his earpiece. Lieutenant, we've got a live one, a human soldier. What should we do? His squad had captured a survivor, human. Vrulon's stomach twisted as he made his way toward the makeshift holding area. The human soldier was on his knees, hands bound, but he wasn't trembling like most prisoners Vrulon had seen. This one was different. As Vrulon approached, the soldier lifted his head, locking eyes with him. The human was bruised, blood crusting his temple, but his gaze was steady, cold. You must be the leader here, the human said, his voice low and calm, too calm for someone surrounded by enemies. Vrulon said nothing, simply staring at the man, trying to ignore the uneasy sensation creeping up his spine. The human tilted his head slightly, a faint smile touching his lips. Do you even know why you're fighting us? Vrulon's jaw clenched. You're a threat to our empire. A threat? The human's laugh was bitter dark. To what? Your pride. Vrulon felt the sharp sting of anger, but there was something else beneath it, something uncomfortable. You invade our space. You spread like a disease, taking what's not yours. The human didn't break eye contact. We're just trying to survive. But you, your empire fears what it doesn't understand. You were the ones who attacked us. Vrulon's breath caught in his throat. No, that can't be right. Tell me, the human continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. Have you ever spoken to a human before today? Or is this the first time you've come face to face with the monsters you're so eager to kill? Vrulon's silence was answer enough. The days that followed, Vrulon found himself assigned to guard the human surgeon Thomas Kane. At first he kept his distance, refusing to speak, but Kane had a way of getting under his skin. You're not a bad guy, Vrulon, Kane said one evening, his voice tired but steady. I can see it in your eyes. You don't want this. Vrulon stiffened. I'm loyal to my people. Kane nodded slowly. And I'm loyal to mine, but that doesn't mean we have to be blind. Vrulon's grip on his rifle tightened. You're trying to manipulate me. Am I? Kane asked, leaning back against the wall of his cell. Or am I just making you see the truth? You think we started this war, don't you? Vrulon's head snapped toward him. You did. No, we didn't, Kane said softly. You attacked us first. Your empire saw our technology advancing, saw our potential, and decided to strike before we could become a threat. We've been fighting to survive ever since. Vrulon wanted to reject his words, to cling to the hatred that had been drilled into him for years. But deep down, he couldn't deny that something had always felt wrong. The truth came to him in the coldest, cruelest way possible. Late one night, Vrulon overheard Commander Zir'thak and several high-ranking officers discussing their next move, a biological weapon, one that would wipe out humanity entirely. Billions of innocent lives, gone in an instant. For the good of the Empire, Zir'thak had said, we cannot afford to leave any of them alive. But the words hit Vrulon like a blade to the chest. This wasn't about defense, this was genocide. Humanity wasn't the threat, the Zir'thak were. Vrulon's decision to act came swiftly, as if it had been waiting in the shadows all along. He freed Kane, knowing the price of betrayal would be his life, but that no longer mattered. What mattered was stopping the slaughter. "Why are you doing this?" Kane asked as they slipped through the base's corridors. "Because I was wrong," Vrulon said quietly, his voice thick with regret. "My people, they've lost their way. I can't be a part of it anymore." The two fought side by side as they navigated the war-torn streets, working together despite the distrust that lingered between them. Their mission: sabotage the biological weapon before it could be deployed. The facility loomed ahead, heavily guarded. Vrulon's heart raced as he crouched in the shadows with Kane, counting the patrols. They couldn't afford to be seen. The plan required precision, stealth. If they failed here, humanity was doomed. Vrulon gave the signal, and the two moved swiftly across the broken terrain, slipping into the facility undetected. The air inside was cold, sterile, unnervingly calm considering the chaos outside. As they reached the core of the facility, the soft hum of the biological weapons containment system filled the air. "This is it," Kane muttered, his voice tight. "We either stop this now, or billions die." Vrulon nodded, steeling himself, but just as they began setting the charges, the door to the containment room slid open with a hiss. Commander Zir'thak stood in the doorway, flanked by elite soldiers, his eyes burning with fury. "You traitor," Zir'thak spat, his voice dripping with venom. "You dare side with these vermin?" Vrulon raised his rifle, heart pounding in his chest. "You betrayed us all when you turned us into murderers." Zir'thak's face twisted with rage. "We are Zir'thak. We conquer. It is our destiny to rule the galaxy. These humans, they are nothing but a stepping stone to our greatness." "They're not stepping stones. They're people," Vrulon said, his voice rising in defiance. "And they're fighting for their right to exist. I won't let you take that from them." Zir'thak let out a roar of fury and lunged forward, plasma rifle blazing. Vrulon barely dodged the blast as it scorched the wall behind him. The room erupted into chaos, with Vrulon and Kane ducking for cover as Zir'thak's soldiers fired relentlessly. The air was thick with the smell of burnt metal and plasma. Vrulon's heart pounded in his ears as he returned fire, the recoil of his rifle sending shockwaves up his arms. Kane was beside him, fighting with the ferocity of someone who knew the stakes all too well. Vrulon felt a blast sear his side, pain ripping through him. He stumbled, but kept moving, knowing they were outnumbered and outgunned. Yet they couldn't stop. Not now, not when they were so close. Kane shouted over the roar of the battle, "We need to set those charges now." Vrulon nodded, gritting his teeth against the pain. He sprinted across the room, dodging a barrage of plasma fire, and began arming the explosives. Zir'thak's soldiers advanced, their footsteps heavy and determined, but Kane held them off, covering Vrulon as he worked. In the chaos, Zir'thak charged directly at Vrulon, a blade gleaming in his hand. The two clashed, Zir'thak's strength nearly overwhelming. The commander's blade sliced through Vrulon's armor, tearing into his flesh. Blood poured from the wound, but Vrulon refused to fall. With a surge of adrenaline, he shoved Zir'thak back, raising his rifle and firing a direct shot into the commander's chest. Zir'thak's eyes widened in shock, the light fading from them as he crumpled to the ground. But there was no time to process the victory. The charges were set, and the facility was moments from destruction. Kane and Vrulon sprinted toward the exit, but the door ahead had been sealed. Kane's eyes darted to the emergency escape, a slim chance. "Go," Kane urged, but Vrulon hesitated. Vrulon knew that only one of them could make it out in time. He grabbed Kane's arm. "Take the detonator. You have to get out." Kane's face twisted in protest. "I'm not leaving you here." "You have to," Vrulon said, his voice calm despite the chaos. "This is the only way. I started this war. I'll end it." Kane hesitated, pain etched into every line of his face, but Vrulon's grip was firm. Finally, with a nod, Kane sprinted toward the exit, detonator in hand. Vrulon watched as the door sealed shut behind Kane. Alone in the crumbling facility, he allowed himself a moment to reflect. "I fought for my people, but today I fight for humanity." As the explosions rippled through the facility, Vrulon closed his eyes, his heart at peace for the first time in years. Kane barely made it out before the facility erupted in flames, the explosion shaking the ground beneath him. He turned back, watching the fire consume the building, knowing Vrulon was gone. He saluted, a gesture of respect for the alien who had saved humanity at the cost of his own life. As Kane returned to the human fleet, he couldn't shake the weight of what had happened, and he would make sure everyone knew the story of Vrulon, the alien who dared to defy his empire, who chose to protect humanity instead of destroying it. Because in the end, it wasn't about who was stronger, it was about who had the courage to stand up for what was right.